What is going on, Niner fans? How we doing? Happy Sunday. What's up, man? I haven't talked to y'all in a minute. Shout out to the Dubs. Got the big game win. Game 4 against the Kings. Um, it's a good series, but we're not here to talk about that. I'm gonna go live for about half an hour, 40 minutes, maybe keep it short. Just gonna do a call-in show. I want to see what you guys think going in before the draft this week. Obviously, NFL draft Thursday, and it starts 7 p.m. Pacific, I believe. 49ers don't have any day one picks, but you never know. And there's a lot of rumors whether the 49ers will trade Trey Lance. So today the question will be, do you think the 49ers will trade Trey Lance this week during the NFL draft? I'm going to put the link up there. If you want to hop in, please. I'm going to start a little intro and we'll get to it. Let's go. How are we feeling? How's everybody's weekend, man? How the hell is everybody doing? The last time I talked to you, I was a little younger. I got a little older over the last couple of days. Had my birthday on Friday. It's been a fun weekend, but now it's time to get back to reality and see what's going on. But how's everybody? How's everybody's weekend? I hope everybody's doing good. The NFL draft next week. What do you guys think? Do you think that the 49ers will trade Trey Lance? Ethan says today's his birthday. Well, happy birthday, Ethan. Taurus season. Let's go. John V says, what's good, my dude? What's good, John V? Hop in if you want, if you got a chance. We're going to do a call-in show right now. So if you want, hop into the stream, share your thoughts. What do you guys think? Will the 49ers trade Trey Lance? Khalil, appreciate it. Hurricane, what's good? Let's see who else is up here. 49ers Pro. We got 187, the Young Montana. What's up, Carl Thomas? What's up, everybody? So yeah, I don't know if you guys been following up with any news this last couple of days. It's the weekend. There's not a lot of news. We all know the rumors have been, will Trey Lance be traded at during the trade deadline, or not the trade deadline, but the draft? There was a little report I read today. He was at North Dakota State spring football game watching his brother, who's on the team, Bryce Lance, and they asked him, and he goes, "I haven't heard about any trade rumors. I haven't heard of any trade talk." So he is telling reporters he doesn't know what's going on behind the scenes. So that's Trey's stance. I'm gonna get my man. Then what's up, buddy? Boy, he's got
What's
the
good, man?
let's go. He's got the Warriors. What's up, man? How we doing?
Dude, I'm so anxious from that game. Thought we were almost about to lose, but barely won. But hey, people are gonna complain like the Kings should have won. But hey, what about the Warriors in Game 1? Curry would have clutched for overtime. So now we're both equally. Now we're good. Tiebreaker. Warriors will coming back. Pretty sure you never overestimate. And Kings, I'll tell whose fault who made you cannot mess with the Golden State Warriors. DeMontis Sabonis should never interfere. Should never do anything bad to Draymond Green. He caused about his own team to get karma. Karma is real. That's
Yeah, karma is real. It's true. Again, if you're from the Bay and you're a Warriors fan, big dub for the Warriors. It came down to the wire. I was a little stressed out at the end, but good series, tied it up. But I want to ask you, Steven.
Yes.
Trey Lance, there's been a lot of rumors regarding him being traded. All the rumors. Do you think that the 49ers are going to trade Trey Lance this week at the NFL draft? What do you think?
Yeah, when I heard about it, I think they're just talking. And then when I heard about they were talking about Trey Lance or Trey talking, I'm like, change the channel because I'm not listening to this. That's just, I don't think so, to be honest. That makes me feel like I don't think so. You literally trade up, you wasted it first round. The other teams gets all-star players. And what the Niners get? Unproven quarterback that nobody knows. And Trey Lance has been working with Patrick Mahomes. So why would you trade Trey Lance when Brock Purdy is not going to come back for first week and you only have Sam Darnold? And the question is, what if he's hurt? And the rookie quarterback, you cannot rely on that he's going to be look like same year as Brock Purdy. We don't know that. We don't know who do we trust, the quarterback or rook from the draft class. So yeah, I doubted it. I think it's just a conversation saying like, hey, you want it, and John Lynch like, all right, if you want Trey Lance, can you give us a top 5 pick? If it was like a team like Colts, and they're gonna say no, we're not risking about the top 5 pick for Trey Lance, then I'm like, then don't ask.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I ultimately don't think they're going to do it because I don't think they're going to get a good enough value, right? A good enough value to trade them. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be the top topic of the day on Thursday when the draft comes in. I'm sure everybody's going to be anxious and they're going to be sitting there refreshing their phone to see if there's any breaking news. But I don't think they do it just because I don't think there's enough value. I don't think th're going to get enough value. But you never know. I didn't think they were going to trade DeForest Buckner a couple years ago, and they did. So, big prediction. I'm going to let the next one in. But, Steve, before you leave, what's your big prediction for this week's draft for the 49ers?
Yeah, that's a good question. And on third round, I can see whoever's available, who we love, is a tackle Blake Cleveland, and I can see he might slip out. And the next one, people are talking about they want a new tight end, and I do understand everything. I already watched everything in your lives. I've been there before, and I do think this is the questionable last position in third round. It's either the edge, the cornerback, or the safety. It's either that. And I really don't care who the players is. Long as we get anyone, we know what John Lynch and Shannon are doing, who they get the players. Trust the process. I really just excited who we get. It doesn't matter who it was. It's just my only favorite draft. I only like Braden Willis for the steal and the late pick. That's only my favorite one. And if we did get him, I'll be hyping we get him.
All right. If we get him, you're going to be going crazy, man. So we'll see. I hope it's a good draft. Ultimately, I trust this front office, but we'll see. If they trade up, it's going to be a very very interesting day. But I agree with you. I feel like whoever they draft, we know how they develop them well. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. Steven, appreciate you. Go Warriors. Go Niners.
Yes.
Bring the next one in. Take care, my man.
All right. Take care.
Yes, sir. Let's see. Let's get the next one in. We got my man. Gammon. What's up? Welcome back with the fresh suit again. How we doing, my man?
I'm doing great, and I'm feeling even better. I I don't know what it is about me. Maybe I should have like a crystal ball, but I am hailing from the 9-1 sizzle,
Okay.
and I called it, and I just really felt like the Golden State Warriors are going to win the next 2 games. And it just made so much more sense. But I felt like the Sacramento Kings were going to build up on their confidence over these next couple of games. And I think we're seeing exactly that. But more importantly, on your show, on Crocker's show, on, Grant Cohn's show, and I'm going to even say this too, couple more shows, I said that the 49ers weren't going to trade Trey Lance during the NFL draft. And I said this too on Grant Cohn's show, and I felt like it was selling to the cheap sheets. And I just wanted my people to be free and liberated from that feeling of just like all these question marks and everything else that's going on. Because I did say, hey, Kruger, Mr. Larry Kruger, I'll bet you $1,000 that he's not traded during the NFL draft. And if I'm wrong, here's a $1,000 super chat.
Ooh.
But if I'm right, you owe me your channel.
Oh yeah, you did say that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And here was the other big thing too, right? Was I've been systematically right on a few other things that I'm not going to bring up right now because it's not appropriate. But I just sometimes like, and I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this for all of the Kings fans that are here, because here's the biggest thing. 49ers fans were like, hey, all of the loud noise comes from San Francisco. Well, you know what? The loudest indoor stadium, do you know where it came from? It came from, actually, it was recorded from the Sacramento Kings fans.
Oh, yeah, it's loud up there, yeah. Yeah.
So we come in there, and you're only 90 miles away. We come in there, and and that's the thing. I don't talk smack about Bay Area sports because I support Bay Area sports. I actually came from the Bay Area. Eh, Fielding a baseball, doing everything I could, little league, everything came from the Bay Area. It didn't come from Sacramento. It did come from El Dorado Hills, Folsom, Granite Bay, anything else, right? It literally came from the Bay Area. And and so for me, for my biggest thing was I just always felt like there was a, not to get too real, but are are you biracial by any chance?
Not me. My daughter is though. But yeah, I'm full-blooded Indian, FBI here. But no, my daughter. Yeah, she's mixed race. Yeah.
And if you don't mind me asking, what's your daughter?
So she's half Irish and half Indian.
Oh, that's a unique
Yeah.
experience right there.
Yeah, it's a very unique experience. I'll tell you that much.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I just, my biggest thing is I always thought of this, and for me, I wasn't born any other different kind of way, right? And whether you're Asian, Mexican, black, or white, you don't have to be one or the other, right? Like always, there's a people want you to choose between one or the other. Like, what are you going to be? And I've always thought of this way because I was black and I was born, African American, and I was born European American, but your parents loved each other so that you could grow up yourself and be yourself. Like, to me, that was one of the most important things. And as we are here as Americans, right? And what you said to your testament, you have a daughter that's going to be biracial and be more than just the sum of her parts. She, a lot of people said with Tiger Woods, are you black or you know what I mean? Are you going to go with your Asian descent? And he was like, I'm both. And that was always the same way that I felt. So when I joined the army, I was just always like, I was so grateful that I could give back to my country because I didn't want to be black. I didn't want to be white. I didn't want to be, I actually took like a test, and I was like 14 different nationalities. And then when it came back to me, I was like, I'm just so grateful that I can be American. And that was the biggest cultural change for me to kind of make that. But to bring it back to football, I knew that Trey Lance wasn't going to be traded.
Okay.
It's not going to happen.
So why do you think he's not going to be traded? Go ahead and.
So it comes down to the rebuttal theory. The biggest thing is the rebuttal theory. So there's a rebuttal to the rebuttal to the rebuttal. For any reason that it could be rebutted, right? But when we start to kind of run out of gas on that tail end, then we kind of know, like, hey, it's kind of clear cut of a train of thought. Now, if somebody were to go like Brandon Ayuk might be traded, and more importantly, Kittle might be traded, then I'm more in line to think of that because we didn't run out of tight ends. We didn't run out of wide receivers. If somebody would be like, hey, look, I don't care how you feel, Gammon, but we're going to draft a running back in the third round, I'd be like, yeah, because we've had to sign people like the last 5 years, out of the last 5 years, right? And that's where I'd kind of go off of if I was somebody who was to make decisions. At the last 5 years, we've had to sign people off the street, just tote the rock for us. Same thing with throwing the football. I knew as soon as we lost that NFC Championship game, my biggest critique on John Lynch was like, are you going to bring in a veteran quarterback into here? And here's the thing. We always talk about holding the receipts. Well, there was receipts that were canted and recanted against him that were saying, like, are you going to do it? And he was like, we're going to try the best we can. We want to do what we can do. And for me, one of my biggest ones was I wanted somebody like Baker Mayfield, somebody who was passionate about throwing the deep ball or anything like that. When we signed you know, um, or not Baker Mayfield, but you know, what was the guy's name from the Panthers?
Oh, Cam Newton or Sam Darnold.
Yeah, either one of those two, right? Because that's the problem. Unforgettable. And it was Sam Darnold. And when we do talk about Cam Newton, we remember his first year when he was playing with Christian McCaffrey. I'm really glad that you did that too. It was playing with Christian McCaffrey. And when I look at Trey Lance, I'm going like, you know what? This is exactly what Kyle Shanahan wanted to see. He doesn't want to give up on somebody until he sees a complete and full run game. And I think he wants to take it to 2032, not 2022, and he wants to see what a different run style game is. I don't know if I set you up for that, or if you were like, you know what, I'm going to answer this question the exact same way the Gammon is looking at it. But kudos to you for answering it that way, because you know what, you're right.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Top two quarterbacks that could be.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think that's the reason why they wouldn't trade Trey, because we still don't know what the finished product of him with this offense with Christian McCaffrey, because we saw what Brock Purdy did last year in this offense with Christian McCaffrey, and it was amazing. So if you think that Trey Lance has a higher ceiling, which many people do, then if you add him to the lineup with Christian McCaffrey, then yeah, naturally, if he can pan out and reach his full potential, this offense is unbelievable. So yeah, I think it's a great point. I don't think they're going to trade him because of, like you just said, there's so many intangibles. The last caller said, there's just not enough value that you think the Niners are going to try to get, because they tried to trade Jimmy G many times and they couldn't do it because they never got the value that they wanted. It may not be the value that we think they can get for a player, but it's what in their minds they think they can get. So go ahead.
Okay, just a Austin, just a Christian Sacramento Kings fan take here. But remember when other teams were calling in to ask for Mullins? Remember when they were asking for Mullins? And everyone thought they were going to. We had CJ Beathard. We had Mullins. And they were like, we have to trade for one of them. Did we trade them?
No, you're right.
We didn't.
I remember that.
We didn't.
When someone was going to offer up to a second-round pick for Mullins, and they didn't do it. Like
they didn't do it. We overvalue our own product. Yeah. What do you think that they're going to value Trey Lance for? Right? Okay, not to get too heavy. So right there, we didn't even do that for CJ Beathard or for Mullins, right? So when you ask me like, why do you think that we didn't trade for them? Well, there it is. The disparity between what I don't think that any other team is going to give more than a third for Trey Lance. Yeah. And they're going to be like, you know what? It's like Monopoly. You know what I mean? Like Monopoly, like, hey, I've got Park Place, but unless you give me like Charleston Place and this, that, and the other, like give me two properties, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to hold on to this. I'm going to sit on it.
Yeah.
Like that's when we play the game Monopoly, like that's exactly the pieces that we're talking about. They're not going to give those prime chip places for what they've already given up. Because again, they have to, two GMs have to sell it to their own fan bases. And people go like, well, what about the Texans? Well, the Texans don't have O'Brien. Now, if the Texans still had O'Brien, where they traded their top wide receiver in DeAndre Hopkins, I'd be like, we might have a case.
Yeah.
But nobody else is operating with that. The other thing, too, here with this, that's most importantly, is that there's like 8 quarterbacks in this league right now that are coming out to where they're going to be drafted. So I don't see where like a trade is merited. Also, too, Raj, this is your fan base. Everybody here is listening to you. Is Brock Purdy medically cleared?
Not yet. Football? Not yet. We haven't got.
Is Trey Lance medically cleared to play football?
You know what? Actually, it's a good question. He hasn't been medically cleared to play.
He's not.
He's not. Still in rehab.
Yeah, he's rehabbing. They're both rehabbing. So again, it comes down to we're talking about we only have one. So we only have one quarterback on this roster, Sam Darnold, who is medically cleared to play football. Folks, one quarterback to play football. Now, Raj, out of the three quarterbacks, Darnold, Brock, Lance, who has the highest ceiling?
I mean, based on everything, probably Trey Lance, but we haven't seen him with.
We don't know.
We don't know. There's so much unknown. We can sit here and say Trey because that's what everybody's saying. That's the popular take, and that's what they told us when they drafted him. But we honestly don't know what we have in Trey Lance. But potentially he has the highest ceiling. But if you look at what Purdy did last year, that was probably the best quarterback play we've had in years with the 49ers. So it's going to be hard to beat what Purdy did last year if everybody's fully healthy and he's coming back and he doesn't miss a step. So, but then there's another unknown with Brock Purdy of will he be back to his normal self after a surgery? So it's tough question. So because of all those intangibles, all those unknowns, I just don't think they make the trade because of that. And you don't know what you have with Purdy. You don't know what you have with Trey Lance. And if you go and gamble on another rookie, I mean, you're back to square one. So I just, unless they get an offer that's just like, whoa, my God, if we were to turn this down, we'd be stupid. That's right. The only. Yeah.
And I want to stroke the subscribe button right here, if you can kind of see that happening. Raj, I want to ask you a question, and I want you to be as honest with this as possible, right? Like, even if you have to look deep within yourself and just be like, you know what? Fuck it. Here we go. Gonna shoot for the stars. Okay. What? Because here's 3 questions. I'm the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I've been open and honest that we don't have a clear delineation for a quarterback. What do you think they're going to give for Lance? Now, I asked Eric Crocker this question, right, who runs like an NFL draft podcast and everything else. He said it'd be irresponsible for any other GM to give more than a 3rd round pick for it, right? And we're not talking about like, and you'd want more than just a 3rd round pick, right? You'd want like some conditional picks, that sort of thing.
At least a second, yeah.
Right. But we're talking about like, hey, you're the GM of another team. What would you give for Trey Lance? And we're talking about 3rd. I think the fans' take is like, hey, you know what'd be fair? Would be like a 2nd round.
Yeah.
But then when we look at the 49ers, we're like, but what are they really willing to take? I don't think it's less than a 1st round.
Yeah.
So my question to you is like, how do you see those 3 things going? And those 3 things I just said, are those all 3 checks in the block?
Those are all valid points because you got to look at it in terms of what we just said. Is there's so much unknown with Trey Lance. You don't know if he's worth the 3rd. You don't know if he's worth.
And you have to pass the physical. You have to pass the physical
because he's coming off a fractured ankle. So at the end of the day, it would be negligence for a GM to give anything higher than a 3rd because you really don't know. But if you're hard pressed and you're desperate and you think you can be the quarterback guru and change this guy and make him the guy that he could be coming out the draft, then yeah, you might throw a 2nd rounder because you might overpay a little bit. It's the draft time, so teams may sometimes overpay a little bit, especially if they don't value draft picks. But I think the realistic value is a 3rd round. But in the 49ers' mind, that's not good enough to get him because you gave up several 1st-round picks. You did a pick swap within the 1st round and a 3rd-round pick. So you're only getting a 3rd-round pick out of this guy. You already have 3 of these guys. You already have 3 3rd-round picks. You at least want to be in the 2nd round to have a day 1 pick, at least.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about like trading. Like, I remember when everybody, and this is why I bring it back to Monopoly, right? Like, some Monopoly players are like, "Hey, look, I will trade you Boardwalk, but it's going to be for this, and after this one time, I'm not going to ever trade you again, even if I go around the board 8 times and I'm broke. Like, I don't care, right? Like, I will go broke on Boardwalk.
Yeah.
You can get it, but I'm not going to give it to you, right? My thing is like, how do you, if you were to lament this or patchwork this to Monopoly, like, how do you see this really kind of like trending or working? Because for me, the way that I'm really kind of looking at this is I'm looking at this like they could trade Trey Lance for a 2nd, which would be fair, right? Like, we're talking about this. Like, I don't see a GM giving more than a 3rd when they got to go hey, we're going to take their $10 million a year. Then we're going to take their 5th-year option the next year. And then we're in a Lamar Jackson type of situation, which we really don't want, right? And they haven't been there in practice, so they don't know what the 49ers, and it's not like the 49ers are going like, here's the rap sheet on everything that Trey Lance has been in practice. It's more of like, will you take this? And we want some first round picks. Because again, the GM has to save face just as much as the 49ers GM has to save face. Like, this is kind of like, and there's no fair shake in the trade. But also, too, we've seen this. They didn't even trade Nick Mullins. They didn't trade CJ Beathard. They didn't trade. Everyone's going like, well, Garoppolo's gone. He's going to be traded. There's no way he'll stay on the roster. There's no way that he'll play through the whole entire. And then there he was.
Yeah.
So then where do we disparage fiction from reality?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of it is too. It's just that you have to realize the timing of everything. It's the off season, and this is the time where there's just rumors are such a in abundance, and there's just always going to be people throwing smoke or news because they need to generate talking points and clicks and all that stuff. So you also have to filter that out, and that is the biggest topic right now on the 49ers trending is Trey Lance. So people start coming up with content, and they can I can see them trading him here, or wouldn't it be possible? Well, Kyle Shanahan says they're open to trading anybody. So I feel like a lot of the news and the rumors are just generated by fans and talking points. And again, you get a report from Ian Rappaport a couple of days later that says, the 49ers are fielding calls. So then the fan base is like, see, all this is true. They're going to trade him. So I feel like it's just the off season. It happens every year. Last year was Debo. Everybody thought they were going to trade him. And you got to learn from years past that this is the time of the year people love to talk and gossip because the NFL likes to stay in the forefront of everybody's mind. The NFL is a business. And when they're not playing during the season, they still want to be the top, the commodity. They want to be the talk of the town during the draft. We got the NBA playoffs going, but the NFL is still relevant, which is crazy because other sports.
Light the beam.
Yeah, well, go. I'm a Warriors guy, but hey, this can be a good game, good series. It's tied up. Home teams right now are cooking in that series.
Yeah.
My whole point is, at the end of the day, the NFL wants to stay in the forefront no matter what other sport is going on. They don't care. They want to be on top of the world. And you got all these talking heads. You got podcasters and NFL Network, and they're pumping out these stories. And in the 49ers world, we're always kind of near the top of the news chain. So, again,
Raj, I want to ask you a question. And this is probably the most important question that I've asked you the entire time.
Yeah.
And I think, like, if anything were to be screened, clipped, put on Twitter, this would be the thing that happens. Trey Lance was considered strong enough to be the starter for last year. I think that everybody, myself included, and I'm a Lancer, believes that Lance has the higher ceiling, but he has the lowest floor.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
But also, too, there's a worry amongst fans that they may try to start Purdy before he's completely ready, because that was a similar thing that happened to Alex Smith. He got 2 shoulder surgeries, and it was like, oh, you know what? We should have drafted what's his name from Green Bay. I'm gonna call him what's his name because fuck him.
Yeah.
But we should, but we should have drafted Aaron Rodgers. But the thing was, like, Aaron Rodgers didn't have 2 shoulder surgeries like the same way that Aaron or Smith did, right? So my question is then, what happens? Is there a fear that we start Purdy too early? Lance doesn't get his attempts, and then we accepted and we thought that Lance could go ahead and get those starts, right? So fill in the blanks there.
No, absolutely. There's a chance for all of that, and there's a chance that they rush Brock based on what they see in training camp. If they're a little worried and they're like, "Oh God, we have to get Brock in because we don't think Trey's ready." If he doesn't come out guns blazing and he doesn't wow them, and they know Brock's coming back, and they feel okay, Brock looks good. But he's still a little rushed. If basically it comes down to how Trey Lance performs. If he's just not cutting it, and you're kind of like, oh shit, this isn't what we wanted, and Brock's coming back, they may have to rush him. But again, it's all on Brock or not Brock. It's all on Trey. And if he goes out there and he dominates training camp and he just looks like he has it, and then he comes out there week one, and it's like, yeah, this is it. Then you can kind of push back Brock and give him his time to heal. But if they feel like, oh crap, and there's pressure and they got to win, and they don't want to take a step back this year with this win now roster, then yeah,
Right.
absolutely they're going to rush Brock. But again, I feel like also the 49ers know that they are traditionally a slow starting team, except 2019 with Kyle Shanahan at the helm, that they may have a few games to kind of coast, but at the same time, you don't want to, because I think they realized last year that they absolutely need to make sure they can get that number one seed. Because I think things would have been a lot different had they played that NFC Championship game in Levi's rather than the Link. I think it would be a whole different story, because playing in the Link is a lot different than playing in your own stadium. So it's going to be interesting, but I think a lot depends on how Trey Lance comes out swinging this training camp.
I feel like that this quarterback thing has happened really because of Larry Krueger and him pulling attention. I feel like away from many more important position battles that should be happening. And I want to ask you this question. What's going to happen to the 49ers if Ward, one of our outside corners, is injured?
It's a big question. They might they better just pray that they
Nobody's
draft.
asked that question. Nobody's asked
No,
the question.
but
It's about Darnold. It's about Purdy. It's about Lance. And I feel like any quarterback who starts for our franchise will be they'll be considered overachievers. None of them will get a fair shake. But what happens if Ward goes down and then let's say this, right? And nobody had a lot of faith in Diamador Lenore. So what happens then?
well, that's one thing that the 49ers have had over the last couple of years, except last year. I feel like under Kyle Shanahan, the cornerback position has not really been top tier. Last year, it seemed like they kind of made that switch. So absolutely, they need to make sure they generate some depth in this draft. I mean, they have some good younger players. They did get some players, Hartsfield and Oliver, in free agency, but are they elite players? We don't know. So I think a lot of times people don't always talk about those other positions until training camp comes, because they're not like the sexy topic. Like I said earlier, it's not going to generate the views. Nobody's listening about cornerback depth right now, cornerback battles, which I think is a very important topic because it's the reality of the situation. But right now, what's selling and trending in the media land is quarterbacks, Brandon Ayuk, those types of things, because that's the big sexy topic. So I feel like that's why those things get overlooked. But you're absolutely right. If they do get an injury, God forbid that happens, to one of their cornerbacks, specifically Ward, they're in a lot of trouble, because I don't know if the depth is going to be able to step up, because they've been in this position where they had Josh Norman and Drake Kirkpatrick, because they didn't re-sign Sherman, and when he came back, he was and he was older too, so they didn't really tackle that cornerback position, and that year was a loss. And then last year, Emmanuel Mosley gets hurt, but luckily Lenore was able to step in early and kind of develop through the year. But you don't know if you're going to have that luxury this year, because you got Ambry Thomas, who definitely hasn't panned out, and everybody else behind them is a question mark. So good question. Hopefully they can get some nice depth in the draft. But at the same time, are you getting a guy that's going to be a quality minutes guy with the third round pick? It's hard to say.
No, and that's my biggest fear, is that if Gibson gets injured, Ward gets injured, Diamador Lenore gets injured, right? Everyone's going to have to pray to God that Ambry Thomas can either play free safety, can play that corner position. We're hoping that the nickel position, somebody can play nickel corner better than Jimmy Ward. So our secondary that we've always been fearful of and being the weakness, right? So when we're talking about going into playoffs, we know that we go into playoffs when we go into facing the Super Bowl, and we have to go up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Who's going to be that ball hawk in that secondary, right? But then on top of that, who's going to be there in that second, third round? And then if we give up on our quarterback, and then our quarterback gets injured, because our quarterbacks have been injured, it's no longer a fluke. It is what it is. I lamented two fan bases for not being on charge of their offensive line units, and it was the Rams, Los Angeles Rams, San Francisco 49ers. And guess what? They both ran through quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's tough.
Even to a point to where the Miami Dolphins and the San Francisco 49ers were playing the third string quarterback in the first round of the playoffs, which was less than ideal. So I get it. Sam Darnold's better than Josh Johnson, but I don't think that Sam Darnold as a third stringer was better than Brock Purdy
Yeah,
as a third stringer. So there's a point to where I'm like, and then I'm looking at it, I'm going like, the reason why some of our defensive backs and everything else, Gibson almost retired. We need a free safety.
yeah,
And I really thought that Tavarius Ward, especially when we got that interception in the Super Bowl, was that player. In fact, Jimmy Ward alluded to that, but we moved off from him. So we need depth in that secondary because I don't see them making through 4 games of the preseason, 17-game season, and then another 4 games in the postseason, right? We're talking about 25 games of football.
a lot.
So where do we chunk that up? And I think that's also too why the 49ers are talking about trying to get a second tight end, because I don't know how much more of George Kittle's back can hold up.
Yeah, he plays his ass off, and he's even said, at the end of the season, his body's in shambles. He says every Sunday is like a car wreck. So you're absolutely right. You got to help Kittle, and he blocks a lot. You need to strengthen the O-line because you mentioned there's so many quarterback injuries. You got to
O-line is worse this season than it was last season. Last season we didn't even really care about it. We just accepted it, and it's worse than this season. And we're expecting Darnold, here's the problem. 49ers fans are going to be pitted against each other for whatever the quarterback that they choose. But here, the fallacy in all of that is that no matter what quarterback you choose, they're going to lose because they're young, inexperienced, or not talented enough. And they're going to be behind an even worse offensive line than last season. And then we are not holding that front office accountable.
No, I agree. Like you said, you definitely need to make sure you start upgrading the O-line because there is some questions on that right tackle spot. If they take, everybody was worried about McGlinchey, who are they going to replace him? They got Colton McKivitz. He's the cheaper option. If he pans out, then that's a dub by them. But such a question mark. We talk about question marks on this team. Trey Lance, the quarterback. Colton McKivitz is a question mark. I know they brought in some linemen for depth, but are they going to be elite enough to play that right tackle spot? It's definitely a question mark. Kittle's body is breaking down. Definitely.
And not to put you on full press, but it's not just the right tackle. It's also the right guard. Okay. And here's the thing is a lot of people are going they're blaming things on McGlinchey. And I remember in the middle of last year, I said, 49ers fans, believe it or not, but McGlinchey is going to outprice himself out of our market. You may think he's terrible, but he's actually pretty valuable. He's going to outprice himself out. It's our right guard. It's our entire right side of our line.
He was a good run blocker, but let's be honest, it was the pass protection that really screwed us. But Spencer Burford, he split with Brunskill last year. Brunskill was a big loss, but he wanted to start somewhere. I get that. Burford was good for a rookie. You expect him to get better. That's the guy that has to take a step up. They did get 2 guys that could play guard, so I think you're right. They know they need to make sure that right guard spot's Feliciano. We'll see how he goes, but again, that's going to be a competition battle. You still got to address the O-line because you don't know what's going to happen with Trent Williams next year. Will he retire? So O-line definitely is a priority. Going back to cornerback, there definitely is depth issues. I know a lot of teams have depth issues. Injuries. At the end of the day, they got to stay healthy. They got to figure out how to keep their star players healthy. But I think the key for that secondary is that O-line. And bringing in Javon Hargrave was a huge addition, and that should take pressure off the back end. But you're still right. If there's an injury like hamstring issue to one of the cornerbacks, it puts you in a big position. But I think they're also hoping that Talanoa Hufanga takes an even bigger leap this year, works on his coverage skills. So I think those are things that can, help insulate those areas. There's concerns on every team. But, yeah, you're absolutely right. Depth at cornerback, depth at safety, because Gibson after this year, who's our free safety? Absolutely is. And I think one of their top 3 picks is going to be a safety this year based on, what they're looking at. And then they can kind of mold him to be that heir apparent next year. I do like the duo of Gibson and Hufanga this year, but next year, who's going to replace Gibson? So you definitely have to kind of think ahead. And I think the 49ers have traditionally done that. They've always thought ahead. But to me, the biggest issue is tackle or O-line and then tight end, because Kittle's not going to be, dominant forever. He's 30 years old playing hardcore lifestyle, playing style that he's had over the last years, definitely think they need to get a top tier tight end. Like a Sam Laporta would be phenomenal for this team.
Can we give Raj a round of applause? Because if anybody noticed, right? Like I have hard pressed this man for answers, for some kind of thing, some kind of moderatum, and he has came through and just went with it. And I'm just like honestly impressed. The young Montana, hey, what's up, brother? I totally see you, and everybody else in the chat. Thank you for being lively. This isn't me coming at Raj and being attacking, but it's more so of the fact of like, hey, guess what? This is the off season. This is what's going to be happening, what's coming. And then I'm honestly, Raj has been the man who's been coming up to plate, swinging and not sacrificing anything. Does anybody in the chat have any questions? I'm going to pose another question while I pose this question because somebody else pose what they think, what they feel outside of the quarterback conundrum that we have, outside that quarterback conundrum cube, what you think you would like to hear Raj answer. And instead of you guys having to put in a super chat, Raj, I hate to count you out of money. Okay.
But anyway, so we're good.
But I will go ahead and I will find those and I will answer those. But Raj, here we go. We're gonna go with another heavy beater of a question right here. Can the 49ers, and we're talking about right now, the season is 2023. How long can the 49ers afford Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel?
Good question.
And how, who do you keep? How do you keep them? And who do you trade and who do you not trade? Or can we make it happen? Because there is a new NFL deal that's happening with Amazon and a couple other companies where it's raising the most that the cap has ever been raised by at least 20 to 30 million a year. But we're going to say on average 25 million a year.
Yeah. No, so I know they're going to raise the cap, and every year it raises. 49ers can always do cap gymnastics, maybe extending Armstead, restructuring CMC. They can free up space. They got to sign Bosa this offseason, which they'll probably do around training camp time as per the course. That's a good question because I've kind of talked about this a few times. Debo's his contract. He has 2 more years. Next year he'll be up. BA right now, he's coming into his 4th season. I expect them to pick up the 5th-year option tomorrow. I'd be surprised if they don't. John Lynch meeting with the media. Pretty sure he'll drop that news tomorrow. If not, he's got till the 1st, which again, it makes sense for him to do it on his pre-draft conference, which he did last year with Nick Bosa. So I think they'll pick up that 5th-year option. It gives them that guaranteed $14 million for Ayuk for the 5th year next year. So it kind of keeps him around, and then they can negotiate next year another extension like they're doing Bosa this year. His 5th-year option basically is coming to an end, so then they could restructure or whatever, extend them. So I feel like they can still keep them both, but it really depends on Debo now.
Do you think BA wants the bag, and what do you think the bag is?
I think he does, but I think he also knows he's got to kind of work towards it. And I think next year they can afford to lose Debo because now they have Christian McCaffrey. I don't want to. They don't want to. I think he's a guy they would love to have around. But Debo's he was smart. He took a 3-year deal, so if he continues to play good, he can capitalize and get another contract. I think BA though definitely wants to get the bag. I think he wants another 3. I think he wants.
Do you trust CMC's availability? I'm playing devil's advocate here.
I do, because everybody questioned him last year, and look at what he did, man. He came in and he was the pulse of this team. Now he's training for a full year with the 49ers. I think he's got 2 more years of quality. He might miss like 2 games here and there. It's just par for the course the way he's used. But I still think he'll be able to come in and play his ass off and have 2 really good, impactful seasons. BA, I expect a 3-year contract when he does an extension, at least $20 million a year, at the very least. But I think his contract should be more than Debo. If he's a pure wide receiver and he continues, if he has another 1,000-yard season this year, he should be getting paid more than Debo. Although I know Debo did a lot of things that kind of paced the offense, but now he was like their MVP that year he got paid, coming off the year he got paid, and he was do it all. He was running back, but Brandon Ayuk, pure wide receiver. If you look at his route running and what he does to this team, I feel like he probably deserves more money if you're just pricing him in the wide receiver range. Because Debo wasn't technically a wide receiver. If he was kind of this wide back, right? He made his own position really. So it was hard to price him, but he got paid a lot of money. 75 mil was like 23 a year. So I feel like Ayuk technically, if you just base him on wide receiver and he can have another 1,000-yard receiving year, if he gets a Pro Bowl this year, I think you can make the argument that he deserves more. And I think he's going to try to make that argument, as he tweeted a month ago, that he was the fourth option in his mind. He was the fourth option on a run first team, and he got 1,000 yards. Like, that's pretty damn impressive. Imagine if he was on another team with the aerial attack. Like, let's just use the Chiefs or the Bills for example. This guy probably at least 1,500 yards. So yeah, do I think he deserves the bag? I think he does. I think he wants it. He knows he has to go out there and earn it this year, and I think they could keep them both. But I think BA will stick around. I know a lot of people think he's gone, but Niners will. I mean, they traded up to get this guy. I think they're going to keep him as a priority.
All right. It's 6:32. One of the big things I said that I want to do was highlight some of the Patreons like comments and people who commented here on the chat. So I'm looking at Pockets, the cheesecake at 6:30 p.m. So if we're at 6:32, 6:33. So if you go up, his comment says Debo's jersey sells too much, and his explosive playability isn't going nowhere. What do you say? What do you say to that in response?
Yeah, no, Debo's definitely a fan favorite. People love him. I think he's a leader of this team. The 49ers definitely brought him in, and he was one of those guys that really became a pillar of this offense. And again, that year they went and lost to the Rams. He put them on his back. Like, he carried that team. But I feel over the last couple of years, now bringing in CMC, he doesn't have to do as much. He's still a very valuable part of this team. I feel like, the fans would be crushed. But again, sometimes it's a business decision. And I feel like if the 49ers, if they can get another receiver that can do what Debo does, which is going to be hard, he's a unicorn, in terms of the yak ability, which the 49ers are they love that yak ability in their offense, the little short pass, little screen pass. If they could find a guy like that that's younger, I'm sure they'd go with the younger option because it is a business. Sometimes you got to cut ties. But in terms of him being a leader and a captain and a guy that they may not want to replace, yeah, I can see that. But if I had to choose, if I'm GM and you're asking me who do I choose next year, if it comes down to it, I'm taking Brandon Ayuk every day. And it's not because I think he's, a better person or whatnot. It's just he's younger, he has a different skill set, and he's a pure wide receiver. And again, you already have CMC, so he could do a lot of the stuff that Debo does. So I'm taking BA over Debo. But it's not because I don't like Debo. I love Debo personally. Me and him we're locked in, man. That's my guy. But I guess I got to go BA.
And Raj, to your point, we're talking about a fan base that has gone through a tumultuous season where even this fan base rooted for the Kansas City Chiefs, Joe Montana, when he came to town against the San Francisco 49ers. We're talking about a 49ers base that saw our own Jerry Rice, who I think everyone would take as a wide receiver over a guy like Debo Samuel going to the Raiders. But here's again some comments here. _187_ says Debo's cheaper. Again, Pockets, the cheesecake says CMC is back on grass field. The problem was Panthers field, and they just overused. He doesn't have to be 90% of the time. Gotcha, says Gadget. I love it when we start with G's, right? Some of that. And then _187 says Devo's all pro bowler, BA, just 1,000 yards. No. And then Randy Daytona says Trey needs weapons, right? And I would cement that as him saying like he needs Debo. So yeah. When you listen to all those comments there who are trying to talk to you, how do you respond to that?
No, absolutely. And I think Debo is phenomenal, and I get it. When you have CMC and Debo, it makes your offense even greater. And then you take pressure off of CMC. He doesn't have to be used a lot. I get that point. And same to Debo. He doesn't have to be used a lot. Someone said that CMC was brought in to help Debo. 100%, I get it. But at the same time, we talk about Kittle breaking down. Debo plays so physical. Can he keep that up? So it might be wiser. I know he's an All-Pro and a Pro Bowler. Ayuk, he's going to get there. I think another year of what he did this year, he should be a Pro Bowler. There was kind of a, that was bad that he wasn't a Pro Bowler. But at the same time, yeah, he does. Debo has the accolades. I mean, the season he had the year before was just one of the most historical seasons. It was amazing. So you can't take that away from him. But he does put his body on the line when he plays. So based on that, it's just, to me, it's wiser to keep a guy like Ayuk because I feel like he has a little bit more longevity compared to Debo, and it's not taking anything away from Debo. I absolutely love the guy. I think he's a phenomenal player, but eventually that body's gonna break down, man. And it'd be smarter to kind of figure out a way to maybe replace him again. It's hard to replace a guy like Debo, and I get it. CMC is there to bring in some help to Debo, but I think that over in the next 4 years, I think BA will have a little bit better a career just because he's just getting started. He's just getting into his mold, his body. He's just figuring things out, you know.
Well, Raj, we've had you play the nice guy, right? But it's time to put the devil on your shoulder. And one of the great things that Bill Walsh said was that it's better to get rid of a player early than too late. So I want you to rank these players in order, how early you'd get rid of them, and then what, if you were the GM, put the crown on your head, what you get rid of them for.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go in no particular order. We're going to go Debo. We're going to go CMC.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go Kittle. And we're going to go Brandon Ayuk.
Okay. So based on those guys, honestly, and I read the chat too, like, and I get the whole argument of Brandon Ayuk probably has more value than CMC because of the younger.
Sure.
So
sure.
Yeah, I think actually if you're going to get rid of any of these guys, probably
1, 2, 3, 4, Raj. No dancing.
No, Ayuk's number one. He's the guy because he's younger. He's still coming into his own, like we said. You get rid of him, you can get you could probably get a first-round pick because if Ayuk was coming into this draft right now,
agreed,
he's better than any receiver coming out of this draft. So you can get a first-round pick, maybe a second. Debo, CMC, Kittle.
So you value, just to be clear, you value, for all the fans listening right now, you value Ayuk over Debo. You value Ayuk over Debo and George Kittle. And you value Ayuk over George Kittle, Debo, and CMC.
So in terms of potential,
in terms
of if I'm a GM, yeah, I would look at the roster. If I'm a GM and I'm looking at this roster, I would take Ayuk because he's still very cheap compared to those other guys.
So, and very young. And he's one of the best blockers as far as run blocking wide receivers in the NFL and can still get 1,000 yards. Sorry to cut you off, but keep going.
100%. Ditto, copy, paste. The reason, so my next guy, I would probably put Kittle because he's the all-world tight end. The only tight end that's better in his league is Kelsey. That you can make the argument. Kittle's better. I'm not here to do that. I'm just going to give them both their flowers. Kittle, he's still got a lot of value, but this is the only I feel like after this year, his value takes a sharp decrease. He's still good, 30 because of his blocking. Now, imagine if I'm a GM and I see George Kittle and I'm like, if we don't have to use him to block and we just throw him out there like Travis Kelce and use him as a weapon, this guy's going to be an all-pro, 1,200-yard, 17 touchdown tight end. I guarantee you, this is a guy, if you put him on the Chiefs or the Bills, the guy is going to be just as good as Kelce stat-wise. So, and you got 2 more years. You can probably still get a second-round pick for him. I know you probably disagree because he's older and he's broken down, but then at the same time, Debo.
It's my love. It's my heart. That's what it is. I see him climbing the top ropes. I'm like, that's my tight end number 1 right there, But that's what it is for me. So
I can argue either way, but
yeah.
After that, it's close. It's very close. Most people are probably going to say CMC. Running backs are not valued in this league. So I'm looking in pure terms of GMs looking at this team. Nobody cares about running backs. Honestly, you can find a running back very easily.
Raj, can I push back?
Debo number 3.
Yeah.
Probably get a second-round pick for him. And then CMC, maybe also a second-round pick. But I think Debo, you can get 2 picks for the guy.
So Raj, I do want to, because I'm looking back at the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and try to give a little bit of pushback on the Kittle situation.
Yeah.
But when we look at it, right, we looked at like Gonzalez and even some of like the, Cowboys wide receivers, right? So these tight ends kind of have a longevity, but they're also they seem to be underpaid, right? There's a point to me where I feel where Kittle's getting paid like 14 million, but I really feel like he should be paid like 21, 22 million. So I hear everything what you're saying, but in a comparative sense, okay, okay, dollar for dollar, Kittle at 32, does it give you more than Debo does at 32?
No, absolutely not. Because Debo plays a bit more of a premier position, a wide receiver. And again, he can be so versatile. So again, Debo has a lot of value. But I think if you're just a GM and you see this team, if you see what George Kittle did at the end of the last season and his run, I mean, he was unstoppable at the end of the last season. The thing about Debo is I think GMs would look at his injury history and be a little worrisome. He had one big year. Other than that, I'm not saying he wasn't great. I hate to pick on Debo here because actually Debo's my guy. Like people must
We're
think,
talking about an all pro. I mean,
yeah,
Debo's not going anywhere. He's got his money. He's good. I mean, we're just talking about
but also I think a GM would look at this team and Kyle Shanahan he probably gets the most out of a guy like Debo than anybody in this NFL would. So I think he on the 49ers has a higher value than he would on another team. That's the way I look at it right now. I still think he could get you some second round picks. Absolutely think he's a phenomenal. He's still young, especially compared to Kittle. But I still think teams would look at that and say, oh, maybe we don't value him as high anymore. Last year, I think was his peak. And we talk about, when we talk about trading a player, you want to trade them at their peak powers because now here's the flip side of Trey. If they don't trade him and then he doesn't pan out and you're like, shit, we traded him during the draft and got max value. That's what I'm looking at. So right now, peak value, Kittle still is technically in the tail end of his prime. I still think he'll be a little bit more value than Debo, plus the leadership. And again, if I'm a team like the Bills and I'm like, all right, we got this guy Kittle. We don't need to use him as a blocker like the 49ers. We're just going to employ him as a freaking nasty wide receiver type weapon. And I think teams will pay for him. But again, Debo, it'd be close. I think the least valued guy on that lineup, to me, is the most valuable for the 49ers is CMC. It's crazy how it works, right? That guy might be the most valuable for the 49ers, but he may not be valuable to the other teams.
Right. And that is the centrifugal force part of this conversation. And I'm so glad that you got to this because I feel like so many people are so afraid to say what you just stated. And I love Debo Samuel because, here's the thing. To other teams, when they go out and they look for players, they go like, oh, we just drafted the next Brandon Ayuk. No, they go like, this guy could be the next Debo Samuel, right? And so when you're looking at that, where you rated everybody from 1 through 4, and the reason why I asked you that is, and maybe people didn't follow along with the math, but yes, where you rated them was different. Where the rest of the NFL is looking for the next Debo Samuel. They're not looking for the next Brandon Ayuk. They don't know what we have. They don't see what we're doing. So I completely am in congruence with the above statements that you had because it's not about how we rate them, what we see with our own eyes, but it's about like what is actually the character and everything else going on the field. And also too, big ups to Brandon Ayuk for when his ankle got twisted, even though he had a sore ankle, and not pulling a Draymond Green and not getting himself taken out of the game. Yeah, Raj, you're saving.
No, I was gonna say, BA's he's a little bit more calm than the average Bear, but Debo, because he got his ankle pulled, right? Debo got his ankle pulled,
and it was injured. His ankle was injured.
He got injured, and then just like Randy Daytona in the chat says, Debo has the one play TD potion. So you know what Debo said? He goes, all right, you're going to twist my ankle? I'm going to go score a touchdown. So absolutely, Debo Samuel is phenomenal, and I would love to have this guy on this team. So to answer everything in retrospect, I hope we don't lose any of these damn players because you're right. Debo Samuel, Randy, has the touchdown potion. You piss him off, he's going to score a touchdown for this team. So hopefully they keep them all together. But it was a fun exercise. I'm going to probably head out here. Appreciate you for hopping in. Anything going on this week for the draft? How are we looking into this? How are we feeling, my man?
I do strongly think that we do take, and much to the chagrin of the 49er fan base, but we do take a running back in the third round.
Oh, jeez.
And here's the reason why. Look, I've been against it with everybody else. I was the one who was against the CMC trade because I just didn't feel that the juice is worth the squeeze. You don't give all that capital. Like, imagine if we had the second rounder right now in the draft. We could have probably picked a second round running back who would have given us something similar, equal to CMC, and not paying the $12 million clip that we're having to pay him. We're going to have to restructure his contract. Anyways, I'm getting off topic. It's just this running back class is just so deep. This tight end class is so deep, and this defensive end class is so deep. That's what I see us doing. I don't see us trading Trey Lance because we're just not going to. You go into debt with something, and you're trying to pay off your debt, and then on top of that, you're trying to pick a Simmons like he did when he sold Def Jam, and then try to be like $1 million ahead of it. Ahead of the clip. This isn't, you can't do that with Lance. They painted themselves into a corner. Like I said, I did bet Larry Krueger $1,000 super chat that the 49ers aren't going to trade Trey Lance during this draft, and that was like a month or so ago.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I also too on top of that, I think that the 49ers are going to draft, but again, much to the chagrin of the 49ers, but they're going to draft a running back. But I think they need another receiving running back because outside of CMC, if they try to keep the offense going, they don't have another true receiving split this running back to the split end or to the third wide out receiving option, to catch it.
I swear though, Gammon, if the 49ers draft a running back in the third round, the chat 49ers.
I know.
Be throwing up. So I hope to God.
I know.
Lance take, but I hope you're absolutely completely wrong.
I know. I don't want to be. I don't pick these things of like Trey Lance, like, and there's been so many things. I was the one who said when Jordan Mason was picked up from undrafted, and I said he was going to be a great running back, and everyone shitted on me. Like, honestly, like if I could go back to the comments on YouTube, everyone shitted on me when I was on Croc Show, and I said he was going to be the one to make it. And now everyone's like cheering for him. They're like, oh no, we picked him and blah, blah. I was like, I was the one who did, but I understand that I don't get credit for it. Just like from the statements that I'm making right now, I'm not going to get credit for it. I am so sorry, 49ers fans, but they are going to pick a running back in the third round because it's for the same reason that they're going to pick a tight end. Why you want them to pick a tight end in the third round is the same reason. I'm sorry. It's not, I don't want it. It's just,
it's what you think.
They're kind of obligated to do it, and they're run first team. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't want it either, but they're going to do it. I'm so sorry.
If they do it, you're going to be the first person I let know. I'm like, you were right. I'm going to give you your flowers, and then I'm going to throw up after that. So let's hope you're wrong.
I just want to be a truther. I'm tired of 49ers fans being lied to, thinking that there's this weird quarterback controversy or these other things going. As a Sacramento Kings fan, we had our team almost sold to the Clippers, to the Sonics. And so our biggest thing for when you're a Sacramento Kings fan, you want a good, deliberate source where information actually comes down through. And then after that experience, I really started to, I don't live in smoke season anymore. I'm sorry, that's gone. In fact, if you actually go on Google and go like, why did the Kings get sold? It actually will tell you why the Kings got sold. But the Kings never got sold. We're in the playoffs. Yeah. It's incredible. So I understand, but also too, like we always talk about the writings on the wall. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm not a liar, but I want to let my people be free.
Hey, at the end of the day, this is what we do. We make predictions. Sometimes we get them right. Like Larry Krueger, he's been posting all 2 months that Trey Lance is going to get traded.
So he was right about Draymond Green. He said Draymond Green was going to be suspended game 3 before game 2 even started. Before game 2 even started, before he even did the thing where he stepped on, he said after that, he was like, he's going to be, I was like, so he does get props, but completely wrong.
I'll try
completely
to guess.
wrong on this.
As sports fans, we always try to like predict it, because when you predict it, you could pump your chest down and say, I was right, baby. So that's what it's all about, you know? So
yeah. I just make the predictions where I don't want to be right, but we're taking a running back. We're a running team. We would rather have our running back run it 24 times and Brock Purdy only pass it 18 times. If your quarterback needs to pass it less than your running back actually runs it, why do you need to pay your quarterback 40 or 50 million? So I hate to be a bean counter for this, but if you don't think that, here's the thing. If Larry would have countered and been like, okay, guess what? You don't think that Trey Lance isn't going to be traded during the draft, then guess what? I will counteract and I'll be like, I still want your 1,000 and I'll give it my channel if you don't think the 49ers aren't going to draft a running back in the 3rd round. Even then I still would have, but we just went on this like thing. I'm sorry. Like, and I feel bad, but I don't, after everything I saw go through, and I really learned how to decipher what media reporters are actually reporting from that whole debacle, it just all went different, and the facts are the facts. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, thank you for hopping in and everything. You're always welcome. I appreciate you for coming in. My man, Gammon, with the hotness, with the tea. 3rd round running back. I think we'd all be upset if the 49ers take a 3rd round running back. But it is what it is. We'll see what happens. You guys have a good rest. Can't even talk now. I got to drink some water. You guys have a good rest of your week. Tomorrow, John Lynch speaks for the first time since last month, right? He's going to talk pre-draft presser. We're going to get some good stuff, man. I feel like we're going to get some good answers tomorrow. I hope so. I think the majority of the questions are probably going to be quarterback related, but I do think my breaking prediction, my bold prediction is that the 49ers will pick up the 5th-year option on Brandon Ayuk tomorrow. So we'll see. You guys have a good rest of your day. I love you.